Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the This Ain't Luck podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Demore, and today our very special guest is one of the most influential music supervisors of the last 2 decades. His credits include True Bloods, Man in a High Castle, 6 Feet Under, House, Weeds, and that's just to name a few of them. He's also a Grammy-nominated music supervisor, and he has deep roots in record store history, and this is just some of it. There's a lot of really interesting stuff here. His name is Gary Calamar. Gary, I'd like to thank you for coming and visiting with us. Thanks so much for being here. We're all excited. You can tell I'm a little jacked up. I'm 3 or 4 cups of coffee in. So I like to get started with winding back the clock a little bit and about how you get going in your career. So, let's get in the Wayback Machine and go back to the very beginning.
There you go. Okay, yes. Well, I like to say that my career began officially in February of 1964, seeing the Beatles on Ed Sullivan at my grandparents' house in the Bronx. And, you know, I think everything kind of changed for me and for everybody else at that point. You know, I had an older brother who was very into music and the whole British invasion, and he turned me on to all this great music. And I wanted to be a Beatle, or at least a member of the Dave Clark Five or something like that. And if I couldn't be that, I wanted to be able to play them on the radio. So I was a big collector. I mean, you know, I was a kid, but I would go to record stores. My mom would take me to the department store every Friday when they got the new singles put out, and there was like a little, you know, top 40 sheet that they gave out, and I collected those. And, you know, went to my first concert in 1969, seeing the Tommy do the Who, you know, on their first tour, doing the Who, doing Tommy in White Plains, New York, at the County Center. Just started collecting like promotional stuff. I'd go into record stores and they'd say, oh, you know, when you take that poster down, can I have that? And I just, you know, started collecting all the tchotchkes and merch, and started working at the Gimbals record department in Yonkers, New York. Looking, you know, just got out of school in Boston, and where I studied radio and TV. Yeah, I was so into this job at Gimbals that they made me the manager in like 3 months, because I guess they didn't have a manager, and I was like so enthusiastic. And so worked there for a while, and then I worked at another department store, Corvettes, in Paramus, New Jersey. And eventually, at some point, I got laid off, and some friends of mine were moving to California, and I said, well, you know, I'll go with you. You know, I'm not staying, but, you know, I'll go with you for a little vacation. Turns out they all went back, and I stayed, and I started working at record store. I started working at the store Licorice Pizza, which, you know, was a chain before the movie. It has nothing to do with the movie, really, of the same name. But I was a manager trainee and started working in the Pasadena store, and then eventually they made me the manager of the West LA store. And just, you know, listened to music all day and talked to the customers, and, you know, met people, contacts that I still have today. Let's see, so I worked retail for a few years, and eventually I started volunteering at KCRW. My wife, Alice, had a friend, Trisha Halloran, that was a DJ there and worked in the music library, and she's a music supervisor as well now. And I just started volunteering there, you know.
Ask you something. Do you remember a fellow named John Fodor?
I kind of remember the name, but no, I don't really know.
Because he's a
John.
little bit older than we are. But my friend Johnny Fodor was a key guy at KCRW for a while. I love that radio station. I'm sure you loved it, right? It's just
I did love it, although I have one correction. I don't work there anymore. I work at a different radio station now. I left there, you know, 4 or 5 years ago. They invited me to leave at the time. And
oh, I love that. It's one way to put it here.
I love it. Excuse me, I've been invited to leave.
We were just kind of moving in different directions musically. I mean, I was into indie rock and singer-songwriters. and they were more into like dance and urban and electronic, and so we parted ways. And almost immediately, I got picked up at this other station, 88.5, now called the SoCal Sound. Nick, excuse me, Nick Harcourt, who I used to work with at KCRW, was at this station now, and he kind of brought me in, where I still am. Every Sunday, I do a 2-hour show.
And they have a website, so if anybody wants to listen to that show, you can tune in and listen to it, right?
Yeah, the SoCalSound.org. You can listen live, and some, the recent shows are all archived up there, and they're pretty good, I think. And Matt Pinfield works there, and we've got a great staff of people that work there, great staff of music lovers. We don't quite have the budget that KCRW had, but we try harder. So actually, when I was at KCRW, going back, I met Chris Douridas, who was the music director at that time. He had just finished working on the movie American Beauty, and he was a music supervisor as well as being a DJ and music director. Also, Liza Richardson worked there, and she was starting to be a music supervisor as well, working on some indie movies. And I said, yeah, I'd like to be a music supervisor too. It sounds like a great job. I love movies and TV and music. And I befriended a guy named Mark Roswell, Mark Roswell, who was a very experienced music supervisor. He had worked on The Commitments and, 50 other movies.
Hi, everybody. I hope you're enjoying the podcast. I'd like to invite you to join us at ArtistPortal.Studio, where you'll get unlimited drive space for collaborations, free sync opportunities, shareable playlists, and you can meet and collaborate with artists around the world. That's at ArtistPortal.Studio. Join us. Now back to the podcast.
And we struck up a friendship, and he liked the fact that I was at KCRW and was into, a lot of new music that he was not into, that he was not, aware of. So we had some lunches, and then I had an opportunity, not really an opportunity, but I had a friend that worked at Fox Searchlight, and she said they were looking for a music supervisor for this movie Slums of Beverly Hills. I guess it was like 1998 or so, and they said, we'd love to consider you, but you have zero experience of being a music supervisor. We know you love music and know you have good taste. And I said, well, I know this guy, Mark Roswell, and, maybe we could do it together. And they said, oh, yeah, if we can get Mark Roswell, because he was a, big supervisor at the time. If you can get him involved, then, you guys can do it together. So, so that happened. We did that together. And then we went on to do Varsity Blues together, and he was an excellent mentor. He knew everybody. He was one of these guys that just talked all day long, and I would just sort of silently be taking notes. And he introduced me to a lot of the players at the labels and publishers and how to negotiate. And eventually we parted ways. I started doing some things on my own. And then hooked up with my friend who was volunteering at KCRW at the time, Thomas Golovich, who you probably are aware of. And we had the opportunity to do 6 Feet Under together. And that was an amazing experience, a fantastic show, used a lot of good music. And I worked, we worked with Alan Ball and Alan Poole. And that went on for 5 seasons, and it was a great learning experience. And again, it was an amazing show. We had that final episode with the Sia song that I put in there, and a lot of people.
I was doing a little bit of research just to get ready for this, and I've never watched 6 Feet Under, but I'm gonna go back and watch it now because I realize it's a really good show, man. I mean, it's really good. I didn't realize even what was going on and what it was about. But I'm going back to watch it because of our interview.
Okay, good. You won't be sorry.
No.
So we did that together, Thomas and I, and then again we kind of parted ways. We're still very good friends, but went on. I mean, at that time, I was very busy. I was working on Weeds and House, and True Blood came along. I started continuing to work with Alan Ball on my own. We did True Blood together, which was also a very different kind of show, but amazing for a music supervisor because they use a ton of music. And
Right. These shows, I mean, most of what you're talking about here are very music intensive shows. The music is so important in these shows. Like, it's not just a little thing here and there. They're music intensive, which is so neat. So neat.
Yeah. I mean, not all my projects have been so well received. You know, I worked on some crappy shows and movies as well along the way, but definitely a few highlights. And yeah, I worked with Alan for several projects after True Blood. And yeah, then continued on working on Man in the High Castle. I just finished a movie called Driver's Ed with Bobby Farrelly from the Farrelly Brothers, a teen comedy that they're shopping around, and landed right now on season 2 of 3 Body Problem,
which is also a really hip show.
Yeah. So that's, you know, and I do, I'm a radio DJ still at the SoCal Sound, which is, you know, to be honest, my favorite job because I get to do what I want and play what I want. And, you know, I'll come up on these TV shows with what I think is like the brilliant idea for a scene, and they'll go, what else? What else you got? You know, what else you
I
got?
always thought that. Like, I've worked on movies when I was younger, and then I got a job in radio, and I worked my way up to being the chief engineer at American Top 40, and then became the producer of American Top 40. And what I loved about working in radio was, if you want, you can make the whole show yourself from beginning to end. You can need some help maybe sometimes with some research or something like that. But I loved the idea that, like, anything that I ever worked on a movie with, it required so many people that it sometimes was very hard to understand the whole idea of the movie when you were working on it, because I was like a cog in the wheel, you know? But when I did a radio show, I felt like I was making my own sandcastle, and I could just had all making this thing myself. Not to be selfish, but there's something fun about, like you say, being able to control that whole experience yourself. You get immersed in it, you know?
Yeah, no, it's great. And not every show at my station is kind of, you know, I do get to pick my entire show. Some of the shows, you know, there's already like a playlist that the music director has put together. But yeah, I can react to, you know, things that are happening in the news, or do theme sets, or, you know, whatever I want to do.
Like, old school, man. That's so cool.
Yeah,
like,
so I'm very fortunate to be able to do that, and I love doing that. And yeah, and I also, you know, write songs and record songs, and you know, I love doing that as well. And all my songs are brilliant, as all songwriters think.
I know. Let's tell them about. I mean, because Gary has a song recorded by Iggy Pop that was in one of the movies, which is pretty cool. I mean, tell us about that story. How does that happen? You bring your own song in?
Yeah, that's a great story. Every episode of True Blood was named after one of the songs that were in that episode, and they, you know, they used a good amount of music, so that's what they would title the show. And we had a new writer, and she wrote an episode called Boot and Rally, which I don't know if you know that expression. I did not, but boot and rally means, you know, you're at a party, you're drinking and getting drunk, and then you boot, and then you kind of get back into the party. So that's what that expression is. Boot
done
and
that,
rally.
I think.
Yeah. So anyway, so she had a song in mind for the show called Boot and Rally, but the song was like completely not appropriate for True Blood. It just didn't work. So they
Probably a cowboy song.
Yeah, I don't remember what it was, but I knew it was, you know, it was shot down. So we said, well, we could name the show after a different song, name the episode after a different song in the show, or we can find someone to write a song called Boot and Rally. And Iggy Pop's people had reached out to me prior to this and just said he loves the show, and if we ever wanted to use one of his songs. So I got together with a colleague, James Combs, and we said, let's try and write a song called Boot and Rally. And so we did, and it was kind of in the Iggy ballpark, and we said, let's play it. Well, we played it for Alan Ball, and we played it for Iggy, and we said, Iggy, you know, we have this song, and we'd love for you to record it. You know, we have the backing track recorded. And he He loved it. He said he loved the
So
song.
you
He
guys
loved.
finished like the band and everything. You had a real recording going when you say
Yeah, we
backing
had a
track.
real
Yeah, you
recording
guys
going.
really did it. Okay.
So he just had to come in and sing.
Right.
And, he had a fee that we paid him, which we were very happy to do. And he did a great job. He was in Italy. We had to track down a studio a small studio in Italy for him to go into while he was on tour. And it turned out really good. Bethany Cosentino from the band Best Coast added some background vocals, which turned out very well. And again, through a strange set of events, HBO, we were on such a really tight deadline, and HBO were leery about paying for Iggy to do this thing. And I knew that we were going to use it in the show. And, Alan Ball had already kind of signed off, but it was like a Friday, and HBO just couldn't deal with this issue. So me and my partner paid Iggy out of our pockets, knowing that we were going to license it back to the show. And, long story short, we own the recording. Iggy, we, bought him out, and we own that track, and we've licensed it a few places. We haven't really gotten that big license yet that we want for, a cool, Iggy, a fairly unknown Iggy Pop track. But yeah, so that's how that happened. It was just sort of.
Which is super neat. I'm going to imagine that that's not something that most music supervisors get the opportunity to do. To write a song that an episode gets titled after. I mean, that must have been a pretty exciting.
It's amazing. It was amazing. And Iggy, of course, is a legend. And
which is why you guys are like, damn it, we'll just pay for it. Let's just do it.
Yeah. And like I said, we knew it was going in the show. We knew we could license it back. It was just, HBO being, we love HBO, but for whatever reason, they couldn't pull it together in that short period of time.
Well, because one person's got to ask another, that's got to ask another, that's got to ask another, that's got to ask another, who then has to ask another. And then by the time they all ask each other and they realize what's going on, you kind of already have it done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Gary, you said you own the copyright on the song, by the way? You own the copyright and the master?
And we own the master as well, yeah.
You know what I'm thinking, Brandon, right?
What?
Submit it.
Well, I mean, we have a lot of, Gary knows everybody under the sun, but we do get some opportunities, and we might be able to sail it by somebody at one point that maybe you're not talking to. That would be cool.
Yeah.
Right? If we got Gary Calamar a gig.
we're open to that. I also have a licensing company. I don't know if you found that in your research.
I didn't.
I'm a little bit silent partner, but me and my partner James, who co-wrote the Iggy Pop song with me, I have a small boutique library called Laurel Cannon. So yeah, we have a bunch of artists on there. We're actually, another strange series of events. We are pitching a Rolling Stones song. So yeah, the Rolling Stones. I'm good friends. I've become good friends with this guy CC Adcock, who actually reached out to me at True Blood. He's a Louisiana guy, and he actually wanted to be in the show, but he also, did some music for the show, and we had stayed friends over the years. And the Rolling Stones, they were working on a tribute album for Clifton Chenier, a famous legendary Zydeco musician. And there was a tribute album, and CC Adcock got the Rolling Stones to cover a Clifton Chenier song for this tribute album. And CC, and it wasn't really, obviously the Stones didn't write it, and they were doing it for, it's most of it is for charity, for the Clifton Chenier Foundation. But CC is kind of controlling it as far as, trying to place it. And, so he gave it to us to pitch, and we've been pitching it, and it's, who knows?
So you guys have a Rolling Stone song in your catalog.
We have an Iggy Pop and a Rolling Stone.
And a Rolling Stone song. That's pretty cool.
Yes.
That's pretty cool beans.
So we'll see how that goes. I mean, it's pretty specific, Zydeco and so it would have to be for the right show. But yeah, just, feather in our cap to be pitching a Rolling Stone song.
You know what we should do, Steve, if you have the time, Gary, that, when we're done with this, sometime maybe you guys schedule some time together and take Gary and show him the portal. We have this thing called ArtistPortal.Studio, and it's like a community like LinkedIn. It's a social network, and there's 6,000 artists in there right now. And there's places for them to collaborate where they can control the rights on you can hook up with a singer, sort of like a dating service for collaboration. And it tracks rights, and you can build playlists and share them. There's all kinds of neat things for working with other people, and there's people in there from all over the world. I mean, it's pretty cool. What happened is we had a music library, and we were like small boutique licensing, and we would have people that would call us and say, "Hey, can I be a part of that?" And we really didn't have a way to facilitate that. You know what I mean? We didn't have a way we were so busy doing our jobs that we didn't have a way to start signing people up. So we built a way to apply to the site, like where you could say, here's who I am. And then we made a little contract and stuff like that. Well, over the years, it grew into its whole own website because so many people started coming that we added an artist network to it. And one thing led to another. And it's pretty cool. I think you'd dig it, man. It's pretty cool because there's a lot of, I mean, we have so many singer-songwriters that are friggin' amazing. I mean, amazing.
Well, I'd love to hear that also, selfishly for my own music. I mean, like I say, I have a small catalog of songs, and I would be interested in seeing if anybody wanted to cover them. I don't know that, for me, an elder statesman trying to, make it is not, that realistic. But
hey, you're never too old. Hey, Colonel Sanders started Kentucky Fried Chicken when he was 62.
Well, there you go. To be 62 again, that would be nice. Just kidding.
But I'm serious, right? I mean, there's no. The people that made the Cheesecake Factory, they had a little restaurant and or a bakery, and they sold their bakery and had retired, and the wife was just sick and tired of sitting around, so she started baking cheesecakes and selling them. And at 65 years old, and that turned into the Cheesecake Factory. So I don't. It ain't over till it's.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying it's not. And again, I'm actively writing and recording. Actually, a label is going to put out an album of mine next year. This
really?
Label, Big Stir.
Cool.
They do a lot of garage and sort of retro stuff.
Nice.
Which mine kind of falls into, but they're going to do, when you get a chance, check out my my songs on Spotify or wherever.
Mm-hmm. We will.
It's going to be sort of a compilation of what's out there, and then 2 or 3 new songs.
Yeah, great songs are great songs. I always say the song is the thing, and an artist doing a new version of that can bring life to this or a different angle on it, and just. Great songs are great songs. It's that simple, right? Working in the record store, does that make you, because I remember for me, and Steve and I were talking about this the other day because I was looking at some of the record store history on you, and I remember the first time I went into a record store and the guys called me Little Man, and they were like 25 years old and had long hair, and they were cool, and they liked me and I liked them, and they would play records, and there's just this thing I felt like, wow, I found my place where I belong. You know what I mean? Is that like when you get in there and you start finding those people, you felt like you found people that were like you, and that develops your taste? Is that how this, like, that's why you become such a great song picker, because you're I guess what you call a crate digger, right?
Absolutely. I mean, record stores are amazing, and it was absolutely my introduction into the business, and I still go into record stores all the time. And working at a record store, I mean, you're listening to music all day long, listening to like whole albums, or these days, I'm kind of picking and choosing. I don't have time to, I don't have 8 hours to listen to, a full day of music. But I would listen to music all day long and, hang out with my coworkers and, go up to the pretty girls and ask them if they need help. And again, just, the posters and swag that comes in. And, whenever I would visit another city, my first stop would be like the cool record store. But I totally agree. And I guess you're familiar. I have this book out called Record Store Days that I co-wrote. And just sort of a history of record stores and kind of my love for record stores.
I know that there's still some of them around, and it's a shame that, everybody's on Spotify and there's an algorithm and all that, because there's magic to visiting the record store. Now, when you would go to different I always notice this with radio stations. When I moved around, and I mean, I could go from LA to Ventura County and the radio sounded different like a long time ago. And would you notice that when you go into a record store, you'd see that they had different tastes in this town? And it was, like, did you see like the taste of the town, so to speak?
Pretty much. I mean, you'd see the same kind of basic stuff, but yeah, you kind of get an idea of the local artists that, are doing well in that city. And, they would often have, independent records or even cassettes, back in the day that they were selling of the local artists. I mean, there was definitely a commonality through the stores, the indie record stores. But yeah, you definitely get a taste of the city when you get in there. And also, there's like the free weekly newspapers there that you could pick up and see what's going on in the city. And yeah, I think you just feel like you're with friends when you're at a record store.
Exactly.
Most of the time. I mean, there are. I worked at the Rhino record store for a while, and they were kind of well known for being like the record store in, that Jack Black movie, being like too hip for the customers.
Right, right.
So I worked there for a while, and when I first went into that store, I was almost like intimidated, like, when I brought up a record that I wanted to buy, if they would, think that it was a cool record or think that I was, not a cool person.
That's not the way it's supposed to be.
But that's not the way. And actually, when I started over there, they kind of brought me in to kind of clean house and make it a more customer friendly and kind of emphasize customer service. So yeah, that's customer service is obviously very.
You
important.
can be a wine snob, but you can't be a record snob.
You can be.
I guess you can, but you shouldn't be.
You should exactly.
It shouldn't
be.
It shouldn't be.
But yeah, I still love record stores. And
let's talk about that Sia song that's in the close of the show, which I swear to God, I almost cried when I watched it. Man, it's that good. The close itself, just all the reflection that goes on in that, and the way, and then the girl in the car, and the way they show everybody's death date in the future and stuff like that. That's why I'm watching it. I'm like, God, I gotta watch this show, man. I'm sold, So how does that come about? I don't think Sia was a big deal at that point, was she yet?
She was not. She was actually, from what I understand, about to be dropped by her label. The song was not released here in America. I was familiar with her because she was a singer on a couple of tracks from the band 07. So she sang with them on a couple of songs. We were playing a lot of 07 at KCRW at the time, so I kind of, was familiar with Sia just as a singer. I didn't really know much about her. I didn't know about her.
I don't know anything about 07. Could you see her face at that point?
Well, I don't know. I mean, she wasn't in the band. She was like a guest vocalist. So but I don't think she was I think you could see her. And she did a video at that time where she was right up there. So I was familiar with her, and somebody sent me her solo song. It was an album. I forget the title of the album, but somebody just sent it, as we were just talking about, along with many other things that I got that week. And I was familiar with her, and that song, I found that song, and it really struck me. And I was playing it on the radio, on my radio show, and I was probably playing it, a year before we used it on, I wasn't playing it every show, but it was a song that I played and had in my back pocket as like a beautiful song. And when this opportunity, scene came up for 6 Feet Under, actually, we used it. A lot of people don't realize we used that song in the promo for season 5 of 6 Feet Under. So it was kind of, I guess, a seed planted there. But when Alan Ball and I worked on the show,
Gary, would you pick the promo songs as well?
Sometimes we would collaborate, but with the HBO team would make the final choices. But we actually got hired. Thomas Golubich and I actually got hired to do some of the promos for HBO, for some of the other shows, because they liked what we were doing with 6 Feet Under.
And HBO is so high end, man. It's just you guys are high end guys, and
yeah, we did some nice stuff because they did some kind of cool promos where they would have, a person from Entourage kind of interact with someone from 6 Feet Under. And so we picked some songs for those promos that they did, and they turned out really nice.
Yeah, those are some of my favorites. They're like collage together.
Yeah,
they're neat.
exactly.
Yeah.
So when Alan had told me, and again, I did the show with Thomas, and Alan had told me and Thomas what he was planning on doing with this final scene. And, we hadn't seen this scene yet, but I gave him a playlist of, Sia was my top choice, but there were like maybe 8 other songs that I suggested for him. And he also agreed that Sia was the choice. And, the stars were aligned. It was just, as you said, a beautiful final scene of a fantastic series. And as I said, Sia was not well known at all. And again, she, from what I understand, was about to be dropped. The record wasn't being released here. It was just fortunate that I picked it out. There's a lot of, great songs that I don't get to pick out. And we just got lucky. And I thought it had a special quality about it. And Alan Ball agreed. And the stars were aligned. It came together.
What's interesting is I've asked other music supervisors about this, and I think a lot of people when they're working, and maybe this is what's going on most of the time, is you're having to be reactive because you're trying, oh, we need this, and we're looking for this, and you got to go find this. And this seems to be like one that, like, I have songs that are part of this network that we have, that there's this one fella in there that I just can't wait until we get someone to use him, because I just think he's friggin' amazing. And every time we get an opportunity, I try to think about, well, maybe he could be there. You know what I mean? Now, that song might have been a little like that, where it's sitting in the coffer back there and you're thinking, man, this one belongs somewhere. That's kind of what was going on with that a little bit. Like, you knew this was special and it's probably going to belong somewhere.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's interesting. Again, the scene was so great. And I actually taught a class at UCLA, Extension, a music supervision class. And I invited people to take that scene and put other songs to it. And some other songs worked very nicely as well. I mean, not as good as the Sia song, but again, the beauty of the scene, was obviously a huge factor in why it came together so well. And the Sia song just worked beautifully. But the students came up with some good options as well.
Let's talk about True Blood for a minute. That has a sound. That's got a whole thing about it. And when you're coming up with that sound, you're collaborating with the director of it, the producer, about, okay, because like, were you on from day one?
I was on from day one. And an interesting story about the sound of True Blood. Well, Alan Ball, at the time when he was writing True Blood, getting it together, he would write, and at that time, iTunes had a song of the week, a free song of the week. And as he was writing, he would take a little iTunes break, and the song of the week was Bad Things by Jace Everett, which eventually became the theme song. So
it's a cool track, man.
It's a cool track. And so when Alan brought me on early on, he said, right now we have a placeholder, this song, Jace Everett, Bad Things. But my first mission was to find the song that we were ultimately going to use. That one we were not going to use that one. That was the placeholder. So I searched, I sent some ideas. We had a few artists write some new songs for the potential, title song. And the more we listened to Bad Things, and it just had that right combination of sort of danger and sexiness and wit and humor, and we couldn't beat it. And we realized that we had the song already, and it was amazing. And Jace obviously was thrilled. I reached out to Jace and his publisher, and Jace confided in me. He goes, "Hey man, we'll make this happen. Don't let the publishing company charge you more than they need to. It's like, this has to happen," and he's going to do everything.
Sort of like you with the Iggy Pop song. We're doing this no matter what, guys.
Yeah.
I'll make it work.
Yeah, because, it's possible, who knows what could have happened in the negotiation,
Right.
but Jace made it
Sure.
very clear that he was thrilled. And again, the fact that Alan found this as the free song of the week, was just, you know, the stars were also aligned there. And that song, I don't know if you're familiar with that song. Yeah, as you said, it's a great song and works really beautifully. But that kind of set the template for me as a music supervisor of what type of music we're going to use in the show. I mean, obviously it was a collaboration with Alan, but the fact that it was in Louisiana, so we had that sort of regionality about it, and it was a show about vampires. I remember early on, I was pitching Alan some kind of more sophisticated, serious type songs, and Alan said, "Hey, look, this is a song. This is a show about vampires. Let's just have some fun with this." And that's what we did. And again, the fact that it took place in the South, kind of gave me some boundaries as types of songs that we can use. And yeah, and people were pitching me songs, right and left, for the show. And we recorded a couple of new songs for the show, including the Iggy Pop. Beck recorded a song for us that we used, and Lucinda Williams and
How
Elvis.
does like that go about when Beck records a song? Like you're reaching out and saying, "Hey, do you want to make a song for us?" Or are they? How is that? How does
Um,
Beck decide? Is he a fan? How does that?
I'm a little hazy on how exactly that came together, but I was close with his management. And I don't know if he sort of volunteered to try and do something. It might have been that. I think, they said, "Beck's in the studio and do you need anything?" And I said, "Well, we don't need anything specific, but if he wants to do something, we love Beck. And, I'm optimistic that if he did a song for us, it would make it into the show."
That is so cool that you could be working on a show that people are watching what you're doing that are creative and saying, "Can I make something for it?"
Yeah. And again, they would tell us, "So and so's in the studio right now. Do you need anything?" Um, and we also had this opportunity with Lucinda Williams, who wrote a song, and she was able to get Elvis Costello to sing some background vocals on that. Um, so yeah, so it was amazing that we could get artists to do new songs, new recordings for us. We had some cover. Jacob Dylan wrote a song for us. Um, and yeah, Bob Dylan. There was a show. They gave us a song like prior to his record coming out that we kind of premiered on the show. So yeah, at that time, that show was hot, and people were knocking on my door.
This business of getting stuck on a song where you guys had this one that was the free song of the day. Like I remember hearing a story a long time ago before I got into this, about you know, um, you know, people need, I guess, people that are listening to this that are artists don't always realize how much it doesn't happen for everyone, but like the Sia song is a thing where this thing just helps save the situation, or this artist gets lucky enough to get in as the theme song for a hit show because he was the free song of the day that you guys couldn't get out of your head. And I remember the story of, I think it's "I Could Walk 5,000 Miles," and it was from Benny and June, and it was the female star's favorite song. It was like an indie song, and when she performed her scene where she was painting, because she had some, I think she might have been autistic or something, and she did all these crazy paintings, and she did the scene where she was sort of chaotic painting, and she would play this record for her acting inspiration, and when they went to go cut it, they were like, the director's like, "I got to use that song because I've been listening to it over and over and over on the set." How often does it happen where you're something that makes its way in there, maybe in temp or something, where you guys just can't get it out of your head and you got to go figure that out? Is that something that's happened quite often?
It does happen, and sometimes it happens, and either we can't afford it for some reason. It's not, it's like a big Led Zeppelin song or something, or it's a song that for whatever reason the artist denies, because he doesn't like the scene or whatever. That happened with an artist on the show Titans I worked on, a little superhero show a few years ago. And the showrunner had a song in mind that he really liked. And, so it was my job to clear it. And the artist, I don't want to mention his name, but the artist didn't like the way the scene was cut. And he said, he said he would like to recut that scene, or, give notes on how he would like the scene recut if we're going to use his song. Never heard anything like that before. So I reported that back, and they said, well,
yeah, no,
forget it.
Yeah.
Yeah, forget about it.
And, there is this sort of thing where you think, that song is the perfect song for the scene and nothing else is going to work as well. And I have found many times, I'm not patting myself on the back. I'm just saying that, you can find something that's going to work better, and that's what a music supervisor often has to do. And, again, directors, producers, showrunners do get locked into a particular song for a particular scene, and they're heartbroken when you can't get it for whatever reason that I just mentioned. But there are other songs that work, and in that particular case, I feel and I think everyone agreed that I found something that worked even better than this one that he loved, and it was cheaper and easier to clear, and it's just you just got to keep an open mind.
What about House? I remember I was a pretty big fan of House. There was a lot of like reflective points in that where the music definitely steps in and plays a role with no dialogue. You know what I mean? I guess call it a montage. Sometimes not even. I guess it's a montage. What's the framework of bringing that together? Because that has its own vibe too.
Well,
House is an interesting character.
Yeah, they went the first couple of seasons without a music supervisor. And I think that happens sometimes, is that the producers feel, they can pick the songs, and they certainly can. But after a couple of seasons, I think they ran out of ideas. And I was friendly with a woman, Lynn Grossman, who has a licensing company now and did then. And she knew one of the writers, and she knew me. We were friends, and they said they're looking for a music supervisor. How would you like to, collaborate? Lynn and I do it together, because they would like me to do it, but she didn't really have experience as a music supervisor, and I did. So we did that show together, I think after season 3 or something. One good story about that is we had a great scene. And we wanted to use an Arcade Fire song. My Body is a Cage is the name of the song, and you can look up the scene on YouTube. And it's a scene that's a little bit mysterious. Dr. House is on a hotel, balcony, and giving the impression that he's going to jump. He's kind of had a lot of problems, a lot of medical problems. He was on a lot of drugs, painkillers, and it appeared that he was going to jump to his death. Anyway, it was a long scene. Arcade Fire were very hot at that time, and we don't want to do our song for a television show. They were too cool.
Yeah.
And we did all love the song. And, I had to try and replace it. And in my research, I saw that, oddly enough, Peter Gabriel had done a cover of the song. Peter Gabriel. We love Peter Gabriel.
Yeah, we love Peter Gabriel.
And
Peter Gabriel was smart enough to do it, but Arcade Fire wasn't. Isn't that crazy?
And Peter, I think Peter Gabriel had done an album around that time where he would cover a song of an artist, and Arcade Fire would cover a Peter Gabriel song. And anyway, we spoke to Peter's people, and he loved the idea. And then we had to convince Arcade Fire, because they still had the publishing. So Arcade Fire said, you can't use our master, but if you want to, we'll license the publishing to you, and you can use the Peter Gabriel master. And it turned out beautifully. I mean, I preferred to have Peter Gabriel do it than Arcade Fire.
Yeah.
And Peter, through his people, said that was one of the great, that and the boombox scene in that other movie with Ione Skye and Say Anything. Yeah, those
Yeah.
were his, and he put that right up there with his favorite uses of his songs. Um, so so yeah, and as it turned out, I don't, spoiler alert, he looks like he's going to jump, and then he jumps into a pool of people, a swimming pool.
Well, you would buy that only because he was he was a character that you couldn't predict, right? He was just so. I mean, that guy, I forget what the actor's name is.
Hugh Laurie.
Yeah.
And the
Crazy,
lyrics to that
right?
song, my body is a cage. He had problems with his body.
Yeah, he had problems. He's such a complex personality, brilliant, weak, just so many things about him. Speaking of a complex personality, Dexter, the sound of Dexter, now I watched Dexter, but I can't remember. I didn't go back and look at any of them, but I can't remember the vibe. What was the vibe?
The vibe, it took place in Miami, so there was a fair amount of sort of Cuban, just tinted music. There was, the score was beautiful by Dan Lick, sadly no longer with us, but it wasn't quite as song heavy as some of these other shows we were talking about.
Yeah, I guess because of the subject matter was so gory, it didn't really have a lot of time for. I don't know. I guess it's just like in House, you feel sorry for the character, but you never feel sorry for Dexter.
Yeah,
You're just kind of afraid of him,
Yeah,
what I
I mean,
mean?
we did use songs throughout the series, but I don't know that it had a real, specific flavor to them outside of the, Miami sound, every now and then.
Brandon, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, go
Can
ahead,
we
Joel.
ask a question? Because I'm really curious about AI music. I know you might have it on your list, but because you're a music supervisor and you're a radio jock, you bring
And a musician.
and a musician, you bring a completely different perspective to this whole AI thing. So tell us what you think about all that's going on and how it applies with both radio and your music supervisor.
Yeah, I haven't really. I mean, obviously, I know about it and hear about it and hear pros and cons. I don't, I'm not happy with music that is not made by a human being, and I don't like the fact that people are, like I say, composing music, through AI, and I mean, I was tempted to kind of put my songs, some of my early, editions of my songs through Sonos or whatever that's called, Suno. But I haven't done that, and basically, I'm not in favor.
Do it, Gary.
I'm not in favor of AI, moving into our business.
Have you tried Suno at all?
No, that's what I was saying. I thought about it, but didn't go through with it.
Well, one night when you're a couple cocktails deep and you can handle it, try it, man, because it's spooky, dude. It's scary. First of all, it feels like when I do it, and I've done it just to know what the hell it is, but when you walk into a place where there should be people and there's no people, like a shopping mall that's empty.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it feels like. It feels like wrong. And I mean, some of the stuff that comes out of it is like, damn, this is pretty good. But there's a soullessness there for sure.
Right.
There is definitely a soulness there. We get it here. A lot of people will, we keep track of them we have a system that, which if you're ever want to make sure that nobody's giving you a piece of music like that, what's it called? Amplify, Joel?
Amplify, yeah.
It's called Amplify. And for $6, you get 100 credits, and it's like a millionth of a credit to run it through the machine. So you can run a lot of them through if you want. And it'll tell you where it's from and what version of software it's from. It'll detect it.
Interesting.
So we keep an eye on that. And look, I get that maybe there might be some people that collaborate with it. Like, I get that maybe you're going to run some of your own stuff through some sort of AI model to change something about your voice or something, the way you might use an effect or a sampler, but to use something to generate the music. You got to try it one night, Gary. It just to freak yourself out.
Yeah. Yeah, but generally, as I said, I'm in favor of, real artists doing their thing, and I totally agree that they come up with some interesting stuff, but it is soulless.
Yeah.
I'm concerned of where it's going, and you know, yeah, for all aspects of entertainment and life in general, actors and all that stuff. It's here
I
and it's
wonder
coming and it's an issue.
I wonder if it will make things more valuable at some point. Like if everything becomes McDonald's, well then a special salad that's real and organic is is more special, you know what I mean? Like maybe real humans become more special because of, because there's an overwhelming, I don't know if you know the numbers, but like I think like on Deezer, like 30% of the records are fake. And at some point, like remember when we were talking about the record stores, you fall in love with the artist, right? At the record store, the record and then the artist and what it is and the story behind them. And there's no artist and there's no story,
Hmm. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I mean, even the songs that are, Grammy nominated and, have 10 writers and, it's just a different world these days of, integrity of the music and integrity of composers and songwriters. And, it's progress, I suppose. Some would look at it that way.
Well, the I suppose part is the part that's it's progress. I don't know. Everybody's going to make everything. What about? I mean, here's another progress angle. TikTok and records that are getting famous on TikTok. The way I forgot the kid's name. He's from a band. I forgot the name of his band, but he's only like 26 or 27 years old. He's young. And you know who Rick Beato is? Rick Beato is he's a podcaster.
Oh, yeah, I've seen his name. Yeah, yeah.
Really, really famous podcaster.
I thought it was Beto.
Beato,
Uh-huh.
tomato. But he had him on the show, and the young guy was talking about when they play a show. Now he's under 30, and he says when they play a show, they have out of the 10 songs in the show, there's uh, two times in two records, everybody's on their phone while they're performing, and when they get to the hook of that one song that they play on TikTok for 15 seconds, everybody looks up and jumps around. And then as soon as the hook is done, and he's like, we play for an hour and a half, and they only jump around at 2 points for 30 seconds. And I know that a lot of record companies are using TikTok to promote these records and make them famous. How do you feel about that? Have you spent any time on there looking at any of that?
No time at all.
Not doing it.
Not doing it. It's just not the way I operate or find music. And, people say, oh, I have 10,000, listeners. I just, I'm old school. I just go through the music and, there's still so many artists that do their thing, Phoebe Bridgers and Jesse Wells and Courtney Barnett, who are just, writing songs and recording them and don't need, 10 people to do a top line or, whatever is going on. Yeah, I'm not affected by TikTok.
Your music discovery now is you go through Spotify and look for new folks? Is that what you do?
Yeah, I mean, people send me stuff, and yeah, every Friday I go through the new releases on Spotify, and I'm always looking for songs for my radio show.
And do you put together a playlist and just kick back and let it roll and go, ooh, that one's good? Like, how do you find the ones, the gems?
It's not scientific. I just sort of zip through, and artists that I've read about or artists that I know from previous work, I'll listen to, and it's like I say, it's not scientific. I just kind of listen to what I can and what pops out, and maybe something has an interesting album cover, or who knows what. But and also I have a community of people that kind of listen to the radio show at labels and publishers, and I take their advice and listen to stuff that they send me that I trust, and And yeah, I just kind of put one foot in front of the other and see what happens.
When you're working on a show, and I imagine this is going to depend on budget, like 99.9 of the artists that we have are just independent artists that are writing songs. Some of them are people that are doing rap music, and some of them are, a lot of them are a lot of, like I said, ridiculous amount of good singer songwriters. Um, when you're picking music, how how often are you looking through those folks on a list? Like when you're doing a show, or you just, when, I guess, it does it depend on the budget? If you've got the budget, you go for the big guys, and if you don't, you go for the lesser. How does that work? How do these people get an opportunity to get in front of someone of your level?
This movie I just worked on, Driver's Ed, had a very low budget, and yeah, I mean, there's a lot of small licensing companies that I talk to who send me stuff all the time, and we've reached out to them, and they send us ideas. I had a co-supervisor, James Combs, and we just do our research and try and find things that are affordable. And affordable in this case could be, $5,000 or even less in some cases.
Right, right.
And yeah, and for Three Body Problem, they have a nice healthy budget, and we're looking, when they need something, and they like, recognizable songs on Three Body Problem. They've used in the season one, Rolling Stones and Radiohead and Lana Del Rey, and they like songs that they know and like, and if they can afford it, which they generally can, we go for it. But yeah, like I say, on a thing like Driver's Ed, I'll just reach out to, I mean, I have a somewhat of a library in my head and things that I play on the radio show that I feel would be affordable for a low budget movie. But I also reach out to these other smaller, licensing companies to get some ideas from them.
So again, there's this ongoing library in your head too, that when you come up against a show that's like this, or this movie, that's this most recent movie where you needed some more affordable tracks, immediately you're referring to the library in your head of which artist will work in this show.
Yeah, yeah,
right, right.
And yeah, and then I'll think of something else, and I'll say, well, they're on a major label and they have a major publisher. Unfortunately, I don't believe they're gonna work. I'm looking for more of the indie, baby bands that are just sort of on the rise.
Well, we'd love to send you over some highlights of our stuff.
I will say I'm looking for something right now for Three Body Problem. Do you know this new artist, Olivia Dean?
I don't know Olivia Dean. You know who Olivia Dean is, Steve?
Oh,
It's sort of, she's a British kind of soul. Actually, she was just on SNL a week or two ago, or last week. And the producers like her, and we are probably going to use her, but there's another scene where they want something like her. And it's kind of a romantic, as they described it, a post-coital scene in a bedroom, after some coital.
Okay. After the lovin' has a
coital.
Yeah.
After the lovin'.
Exactly.
As the song goes.
And they're looking for some ideas like Olivia Dean for this scene.
Take that down,
kind
Steve, and work on that.
Romantic, but it's it's kind of
Doing
chill.
A live shout out right now.
Yeah, are you thinking of I forgot our English girl,
Georgina?
Yeah, she's pretty
Send
cool.
them after we get off. Send them today. I'm working on that today.
Okay, boy, that's neat.
Send it.
We'll do it post haste.
Yeah, the artists that we have, they're all, anyone that we would be pitching is already signed with us. We're cleaned up. The whole thing is set. So we wouldn't even send her on over to you unless we could say yes. Yeah, they're all one stop. They're all set to go,
Yeah, listen to Olivia to get a better idea. And it could have a little bit of a groove or a beat to it, but it should be mostly kind of, post-coital.
Mm-hmm. A chill vibe, probably, right?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, Olivia Dean seems to be on the rise these days. As I said, she was just on SNL, so a lot of crap on SNL, as we all know. But she's a talented artist and kind of like I say, a neo soul or whatever you want to call it.
Also, I know that's what you're looking for right now, but we do have a couple of highlight albums that are singer-songwriter albums, and it would be great if we could just send them to you, and you could maybe just listen to them. Hell, maybe you play them on your radio station. But some of the, I mean, we put these albums together of different artists because we just think they're awesome, and maybe it would be interesting to see if you think they're awesome.
So how would you send them, like on a disco list or something like that?
Oh, we have what we call our system does a similar to a disco list. It has what we call an external playlist. You would just get a playlist, you click it, it opens. It's got all the records there. It's got artwork on it. It tells you if they're one stop or not. You could play it. You could download it. It's just.
And I could just save it for future reference.
You can save it for a future reference.
Metadata's on the song.
All the metadata's on the songs. All the stuff is on the songs. The reason why we use our own system is because there's just too many tracks and too many artists to be getting involved with a disco or something like that. So we even have our own DocuSign system that we built that's within the system, that if someone agrees to do this, the contracts are all in there and they sign, and the contracts are attached to the songs. So if we ever need, and then all of the information about that contract is shown on the song. But if you ever need to look at the contract, you can click on it and open it and see the deal on the song from the artist,
Cool. Nice. Nicely done.
It's tight. It's a tight system. I mean, because we run it tight. Listen, Gary, I know we got you more than an hour here. I want to thank you for coming and hanging out with. I love hearing all the stories. It's so interesting. You're a super interesting guy.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. You're a good host, and good to meet you guys.
Coming from a radio guy, that's a compliment.
Yeah, no, you do good. You sound good. And yeah, we'll just keep in touch, and I'll look for your suggestions for this one Olivia Dean thing.
Thank you very much, Gary. It was great having you here. Thanks again. I look forward to seeing you again soon.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Gary.
All right. See ya.